Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Players' Day off out in Berea, getting ready for the Chargers coming up Sunday at First Energy Stadium. Browns did make a couple of roster moves earlier today. Jerome Ford put on the injured list. They signed Sam Kamara, a defensive end, to the practice squad, released defensive end Curtis Weaver from the practice squad. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, you know, the injury to Ford just means it's kind of another shuffle in the return game, at least as far as kickoff returns go.
Yeah, they are really getting hit in the return game this year, and they're still scrambling to try to recover from losing Jakeem Grant for the season with that ruptured Achilles. They really just haven't been able to replace him to any great degree. Had some issues with Demetric Felton. Now, I watched Jerome Ford walk out of Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a boot on his foot. He's on IR for about at least 4 weeks now. We'll see how that goes, but you know, they'll have to hope that they can get him back. But, you know, I think they should really look around and see if they can find some kind of a returner that they could try to trade for or somehow otherwise solve this problem.
So once again, out in Atlanta, and you were there, saw it firsthand, the Browns kind of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. How did it happen this time? Just kind of when you try to put together the pieces, what went wrong?
Well, you know, I mean, when you think about it, they fell behind 10-0 in the first quarter. So they really never had a handle on this game at all. They really struggled throughout the game, and falling behind like that is never a good thing. They were able to obviously to tie it up. They were able to go ahead. But, you know, when I look at this game, I don't pin it all on not going for, I don't pin it on going for the touchdown on 4th and 3 from the 4. That happened on the first drive of the game. And as I mentioned, they tied the game at 10. They were tied at halftime. And so it was an opportunity for them to come out, make some halftime adjustments, and put the game away in the second half. And they did just the opposite. They were outscored 13-7 in the second half, and they could not stop the run. So I pin this game on Miles being out, Jadeveon Clowney being out, the inability to stop the run, and then Jacoby Brissett was kind of off. There were 2 turnovers. I mean, you can't turn the ball over and expect to win the game when you lose the turnover battle. So David Njoku's fumble, Jacoby's interception, they were all contributing factors. And
you kind of touched on it, not only Jadeveon and Miles being out, I think Anthony Walker's absence against the run in particular is something that maybe people didn't realize how much of a stabilizing force he was in the middle relative to the run game against that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot to overcome. When you look at the defensive front right now, in that particular game, as you mentioned, they were without Anthony Walker, Chase Winovich, Myles Garrett, and Jadeveon Clowney. So they were up into their depth pretty good. And you had a new signal caller in Jacob Phillips. So you know, there was a lot going on there, a lot of moving parts. I truly believe that if some of those guys had been in this game, that the Falcons would not have been able to rush for 170 of their 202 yards in the second half of that football game. Just not feeling that. And then also, who knows, maybe they would have been able to contain Marcus Mariota, so he isn't able to complete that 42-yard pass. But certainly some defensive issues in the second half.
From what you saw in Atlanta, what's the most concerning thing that you think needs to get corrected quickly, and can it get corrected quickly?
Well, like I said, I think a lot of that loss had to do with the fact that they didn't have Miles and Jadeveon. You can cover up a lot of ills when you've got those 2 guys on the edges, setting the edge, getting the pressure on the quarterback, getting the QB off of his mark, and all of those kinds of things. So if those guys come back for this game, I think it will really, really help against Justin Herbert. On the other side of the ball, you know, the Browns are still running the ball really well, but Jacoby Brissett was off in this game. I mean, he just was not himself. He wasn't the quarterback that we watched the last 2 weeks. He was under pressure a lot. He did not fare well against that pressure, completing only 2 of 9 attempts for 17 yards and an interception when he was under pressure. So he did not do well in that regard. He was not able to connect at all with Amari Cooper. And I just think that, with Amari being so good at his route running and being able to get open, that you've got to find a way to get him the ball.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one trying to make some sense of where the Browns sit.
Another tough loss for the Browns. I feel like on paper we have too much talent to be struggling the way we do. Do you put that on the scheme, the coaches, or the players? Because it seems like the good teams scheme around their players. They don't force guys into their own scheme. They find what works for their players. And I feel like Cleveland is always giving up chunk plays. And then we've got a top 5 run defense, top 7 run defense. And then we get gashed for, 7 passes the whole game. It's nothing but run games. And I get it, it wears you out. But we've got 2 horses, too, that we should have just been running. But at the end of the day, what do you put this on? Do you think this is coaching, scheme, players? It just gets rough to watch because, like I said, if you look on paper, I feel like our talent on paper is way too good to be as mediocre as we are. So I know we don't have Deshaun, and I think things will change then, but we still should be good enough to not be struggling with the lesser talented teams per se. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. I'll leave that up to you. Is it scheme? Is it coaching? Is it players?
I think it's a combination of a lot of those things. As I mentioned, I think if Miles and Jadeveon had played in that game, the Browns are winning that football game. So that's first and foremost. I just don't think the game would have gone like that. When it does go like that and they're not in the football game, then you need the other side of the ball to really be humming along and playing at peak efficiency. And Jacoby Brissett just did not have a good game. He missed a lot of things. Again, he was under some pressure, and so I put it more on the execution than I do the play calling. I think the play calling is a very easy target when when things don't go right. But I can't blame this game on a 4th and 3 that happened at the 4 that happened on the first drive of the game. I don't see anything wrong with being very aggressive and going for touchdowns. They felt that this could be a shootout. Just like Sunday's game against the Chargers could be a shootout. So, they felt like they were going to have to score points. And I just really can't fault them for trying to do that. You have to execute it, but, the intent was correct.
Yeah, again, play calling is one of those things. If it works, everybody loves it. If it doesn't work, it's a terrible play call. That's just the nature of football play calling. Were you surprised that I think it was exactly 50-50, 35 runs, 35 passes. And that's probably, if you asked Kevin Stefanski going into it, they probably threw the ball more than, I don't think 50-50 pass run is what they want to do.
Well, this was the 27th ranked pass defense that they were going against. And when you have that, it's an opportunity to create some mismatches and to take some shots. And you saw in the beginning of the game, it was actually working quite well. David Njoku made a couple of big catches early on that first drive. It was going okay. Donovan Peoples-Jones caught a 42-yarder. So there were chances to do that. So I don't really fault them for, trying to make some hay in the passing game. I just think that there were certain plays in the game that didn't go right, including Jacoby throwing a pick on the final play when they were trying to get into field goal range.
Yeah, fair enough. The pass defense of the Falcons was not great going in. All right, this is interesting as well from Mike Clay. Top 5 teams in offensive EPA, expected points added. And again, Browns still up there. Chiefs, Lions, Dolphins, Browns, Seahawks. So again, the Browns offense has been good, but as you alluded to, with all the pieces that were missing, in addition to Jadeveon, Miles, Anthony Walker, Taven Bryan, they needed the offense to even step it up a little bit more against the Falcons.
Well, what they needed at the end of the game was basically about 35 yards to get Cade York in position for the game-tying field goal. If you can't get 35 yards in your 2-minute drill, then something's wrong. And, that drive was basically a disaster. You had Joel Bitonio. Jacoby hesitated a little bit on the screen pass to Kareem Hunt. It caused Joel Bitonio to get a flag there, which they did not need. You can't be going backwards. Then Joel gave up a sack after that, which is uncharacteristic of him. So they knocked back another 8 yards. And then you're kind of in dire straits. And at that point, I think Jacoby may have lost a little tiny bit of his composure, and he did not see Dearness Johnson completely wide open over the middle for what I think would have been enough to put Cade York in position for that, game-tying field goal. So a lot went wrong in that game, a lot more than just going for a touchdown on 4th and 3.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if you're going to look at that going for the 4th down and 4th and 3, you have to look at the 4th down conversions that extended drives as well. I think the Browns were 3 for 4 on 4th down. I think it was 3 for 4. So if you go for it on 4th down, you have to take the positives away from it as well as, when you don't make it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an aggressive mindset, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. It's the same thing that you see happening with John Harbaugh over in Baltimore. It's the same thing that Brandon Staley does with the Chargers. It's just the newer brand of football. It might not have been something anybody would have done in the 1980s, but it's what they do now. And these are high-flying offenses, high-scoring games, and this is what you're going to see.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, and cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also, take a look at that Browns defense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Some news from around the NFL. Ian Rappaport reporting, former Mayfield High School football player, current Cardinal, Andy Isabella, was subject to trade interest a little bit ago. He has been waived as they signed Billy Price, another Northeast Ohio native, off the practice squad. Mary Kay, Andy Isabella, it's a younger wide receiver, some speed, a local guy. Is that somebody you think the Browns look at now that he's out there as a free agent?
I'm sure that he's probably, on their radar somehow, some way, because they probably still could use some wide receiver help. But I also think that they are really willing to remain committed to the young guys on their own roster. I think that they believe they're going to get a whole lot more from David Bell. I think they still believe in Anthony Schwartz, and they haven't even really scratched the surface yet too much this season with Donovan Peoples-Jones. And they also have Michael Woods, too, waiting in the wings. So I don't think they're clamoring to sign another receiver right now, but of course you never know.
Fair enough. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about where the Browns sit here.
In my opinion, I had us losing this game simply because the Falcons game, because we didn't have our best edge rushers. So how are we going to stop the run? We can talk about, how good Nick Chubb is and how Kareem Hunt is all day long, but they were healthy. it's hard to beat teams that are healthy in the NFL. And if you're banged up and you don't have 3/4 of your defensive line, you're going to lose games. It's hard. You're going to lose football games.
And Mary Kay, it's a valid point. How do you work around that? How do you overcome? Because as Kevin Stefanski will tell you, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. How do you overcome something like that?
Yeah, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. I mean, look, the Giants did what they had to do to win a football game over the weekend, using Saquon Barkley as the Wildcat quarterback. So you do what you have to do, and you find a way, and that's basically it. And you need your best playmakers to make big plays in a game like that. When you don't have Miles and you don't have Jadeveon, then you need like a Denzel to step up and get an interception, which he did. Once again, they lost the turnover battle. Cannot happen. You're not going to win the football game that way 70% of the time. Amari Cooper, 1 catch. That's not going to cut it. So you've got to make sure that your big playmakers are coming through for you like that on a day when you might not have all of your horses.
All right, this is kind of interesting as well. Browns defense ranks 7th in the first 3 quarters, averaging 4.93 yards per play allowed. Now, when you flip it to the 4th quarter, the Browns defense is giving up 7.83 yards per play. That's worst by a lot. No other defense in the NFL giving up more than 6.61. Obviously, that's a trend that's got to stop. You got to stop giving up. What's that saying is you're giving up big plays in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's the reason for that number. Were 2 blown coverages earlier in the season, and then in this past game, a 42-yarder in the 4th quarter from Marcus Mariota to Zacchaeus. And it really wasn't a blown coverage. It was against cover 3, and he found a big hole in there after he was scrambling around, and you can be vulnerable to that. So it was a good play by him, a good heads-up play by Marcus Mariota there. And a couple of the Browns kind of, bit on the fake a little bit. So it was just it was a good play by him, a bad play by them, but not necessarily, just a complete blown coverage like we had seen previously. But still, they are vulnerable to that big play late in the game, and they have to do whatever they can. Maybe it was communication issues this time. Now they have Jacob Phillips with the green dot. And as you mentioned, I do think it hurts not to have Anthony Walker. He's so smart, so savvy, does a great job calling the plays. I mean, maybe that was an issue. We'll explore that this week.
Yeah, and again, it's not going to get any easier. You've got Justin Herbert, you got Joe Burrow coming, you got Lamar Jackson, who's having a great. The quality of quarterback is getting ramped up. I know you've addressed this in your Hey Mary Kay. Is it fair to say the Browns are underachieving through the first 4 games?
I would say so, yes, because I really think that they should at least be 3-1 coming out of this cushy and soft part of their schedule. They should not have lost to the Jets. They shouldn't have had the meltdown in that game, and they should not have lost in Atlanta. They were better than the Falcons, man for man, even without 3 of their 4 starting defensive linemen. So I would say, yes, that they have underachieved to this point.
All right. Now, let me pose this to you. If I'd told you that Jacoby Brissett was going to be 82 of 127, 830 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions after these 4 games, and both of those interceptions, by the way, came final drives trying to set up game-tying or game-winning field goals. What do you think do you think the Browns' record would be if I would have told you he's going to be playing like that? What would you have thought the Browns' record would have been?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jacoby had 2 really, really nice games before this game in Atlanta. And people were starting to wonder, is he going to be the starting quarterback when Deshaun Watson comes back? That was the national and local discussion all of last week, which of course I thought was preposterous.
Yeah.
And I did answer that in a Hey MK as well. But, that was the mindset heading into this game, that, my goodness, look at him. He just needed to be surrounded with this great supporting cast. I think he is about what they thought he was going to be. And that is sort of, good, serviceable, and there will be some growing pains and there will be some ups and downs. You can't be throwing interceptions. He had a wide open man. There were other mistakes that were made in that game. He's got to pick it up a notch. I just don't think obviously from his 68 rating, he did not play well in that game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, and to your point, Dearness Johnson was wide open, and it looked like he might be able to get where he needed to go for a potential game-tying field goal. Are the Browns' woes easily fixed, do you think? Or is there something kind of deeper that's going on here?
Well, it's going to be tough to tell because they are heading into, once again, the gauntlet of their schedule. It's going to be really, really hard to start excelling in this really, really hard part. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, they're heading into a stretch where they have the second toughest schedule in the NFL going forward. They are coming off a stretch in which they had the fourth easiest. So everything's going to get ratcheted up. And here they were, not even playing well against the Baker Mayfields, Joe Flacco's, Mitch Trubisky's, and Marcus Mariota's of the NFL. Now they've got to try to go against the Justin Herberts, Joe Burrows, Josh Allen's, Tom Brady's, Lamar Jackson's, and the like. So it's not going to get any easier from here.
Sounds like you're just reading off a Pro Bowl roster of quarterbacks.
Right.
Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll look at some of the things moving forward with the Browns, getting ready for the Chargers. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about one of the Browns' formations.
Yes, this is Gary Crow. The question I have, why do we have an empty backfield when the running game is our biggest threat, and you go to an empty backfield that poses no threat? Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, Mary Kay. Empty backfield.
You know, I think that's a formation that Jacoby likes operating out of. I think he feels like he can have some success out of it, and he has some say in the matter when he has an opportunity to have some input in the game plan. And he has been successful at times this season out of that formation. And it doesn't mean that you don't have any backs on the field, and it certainly doesn't mean that you can't run the ball out of it. But it's just something that that I think he likes to do from time to time.
The other thing is it forces the defense to defend the entire width of the field, and then if you motion somebody in, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create space for your playmakers. You know, you're trying to get Chubb, Hunt, Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Njoku in space where there aren't many defenders. That's the whole idea behind it. You outman the people, more offensive players than defensive players. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Have a lot of them here. This one about where the Browns sit.
Hi, this is Rico, and I'm calling in regards to the fans' overreaction to wins and losses. Being 2-2 really doesn't mean much because I remember a few seasons back when we absolutely dismantled the Ravens to improve to 2-2, and it did nothing for us because in that season we finished 6-10. I just wish that fans would just relax and let the season play out. Yes, it sucks that we lost, but it's not the end of the world. Let's keep faith and let's keep going. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, it is a passionate fan base. You know it more so than anybody.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I do agree. There is is sometimes an overreaction to a loss and even an overreaction to a win. As I mentioned, people were wondering about Jacoby Brissett still being the starting quarterback when Deshaun comes back after the previous two games. So people, are all over the map when it comes to a win or a loss. And I think what's different now, even than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is that everybody does have a voice. Everybody does have an opinion. And we hear from pretty much everybody on what they think of the game and what they think Kevin Stefanski should do. I actually got a nasty email from someone today about my opinion that the play calling isn't horrible. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. So, so it's just funny that, now we have, everybody that can weigh in all over social media on these things, and things get larger than life. But I do think, they still have a chance. What they have to do is steal a victory out of one of these really tough games going forward. They've got to win something that people don't expect them to win to make up for the loss to the Jets and the loss to the Falcons.
Yeah, and it happens every week in the NFL. There are always teams that you think they're not going to win that game, and they do. The Browns have to get one or two of them. I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is from NFL.com. Contenders or pretenders among 2-2 teams, and there are a lot of them in the NFL. There's as many of them this year in the NFL as there has been. Teams that start the season 2-2 make the playoffs almost 37% of the time. The Browns, they say they are contenders. If Cleveland can stay around 500 until Deshaun Watson returns from his suspension, Browns have the roster to make a run in December. Nick Chubb is currently the best back in football. Defense has playmakers at all three levels. Kevin Stefanski's team isn't going away. And by and large, I'd agree with that. The defense has to get it right in a hurry, though, and they're going to get tested more so coming up here than they have been in the first 4 weeks.
Well, I think one of the key things to remember here is that this past Sunday, the other two teams in the division lost. Okay, so the Baltimore Ravens lost and the Pittsburgh Steelers lost to common opponents on Sunday. That left the top three teams in the AFC North all tied at 2-2, with the Cleveland Browns in first place by virtue of their 1-0 division record. The Pittsburgh Steelers down at the bottom at 1-3, but the Browns are still right in the thick of it. Now, if someone had pulled ahead and the Browns had fallen behind at 1-3, then there might be something to really worry about right now. But they're in first place in the division, of course, heading into this tough stretch, but still, all is not lost right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Steelers changed quarterbacks. The Ravens' pass defense has not been good, so no team is really right in the division just yet. All right, Browns are getting ready to face a high-powered Chargers offense. We have no idea if Clowney and Myles Garrett will be back. We'll get an update tomorrow on that. What do they need to do? How do you beat this team? Now, it is a defense that has given up some big runs earlier in the season, being the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, you want to use Nick and Kareem as much as you can to keep the Chargers offense off the field. So you want to possess the football to the extent that you can. You want to get Myles and Jadeveon back if you can, because you're going to have to get Justin Herbert off the mark. You're going to want to try to hit him if you can. He's got a rib injury, and, that's the name of the game in football. You want to make him, kind of uncomfortable back there, or maybe even, on his back if you can do that. So, these are some of the things that they're going to have to do. And I think getting those two guys back would be huge. And if they don't get them back, or if they just get one of them back, then you, like I said before, you go to your other key playmakers, your Pro Bowlers. You look to the Amari Coopers. You look to the Nick Chubbs. You look to the Denzel Wards to step up in big games and make big plays.
Absolutely, and it's important to note Slater, left tackle for the Chargers, is out. The Bosa brother, the Chargers version of the Bosa brother, is out as well. So they're not completely healthy, and the Browns need to rely on the run game. That's where it's going to come down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, those are two of their best players that you're talking about. I mean, taking Joey Bosa off the field for them is an enormous break for the Cleveland Browns, just like it would be an enormous break for the Chargers if Miles is off the field. It's his counterpart over there. So, it should be a little bit easier for Jacoby to get the job done.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Again, Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Always really insightful Browns coverage. We are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
Afc CLE has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns' fourth quarter offense.
Hi, it's Randall McKissick, lifelong Browns fan and frequent caller. So with this upcoming stretch in the schedule, I think it gives the Browns a good chance to win if we utilize what I call our fourth quarter beat. If you remember back in the old days, teams that featured the run with guys like Jerome Bettis, Barry Sanders, Eric Campbell, Nick Chubb is a fourth quarter beast. Those guys in the fourth quarter, they pound the ball, and take advantage of that skill to run up the clock, get points, and just punish the defense. I think we need to quit passing so much, run the ball, use our fourth quarter beast to the maximum extent, and then when he gets tired, you got a trio of backs that you can put in there. You can put Hunt in there, you can put Johnson in there, you can put all our other guys in there. You don't have to just have those two and manage these games by keeping those other teams off the field. Because our defense can't stop anybody, and you're going to have to keep the ball as much as you can. Okay, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Casey, by and large, I don't have a big problem with the play calling. I get the thought, but we'll get to something that I want people to let sink in here in a minute. Just your thoughts on it.
It's situational. I think fans need to understand that. If the Browns would have had a lead, you'd have seen 24 out there. That's just the way it rolls. But they were in their 2-minute offense. And when they're in a 2-minute offense, you're going to see Kareem Hunt. His skill set is perfect for that, He's perfect out of the backfield as a receiver. He's excellent in pass protection, and he just presents more of a threat in that 2-minute scenario. But if it was a 4-minute offense scenario where you're trying to grind the clock out, of course you're going to see Nick Chubb. But it's just situational.
Well, the other thing is the game in the 80s and 90s, which I grew up on the field covering, it's different. The guys are bigger, faster, stronger. You can't line up and blow somebody off the line of scrimmage all game long. Well, I'm not going to say that. It's not as easy to do. It was done a little differently back then. The thing I want you to take a look at, this is from Spot Track, the most run-heavy teams. The Browns are second through 4 weeks. The Eagles have 153 rush attempts, Brown 149. But of those 153, 53 of them belong to Jalen Hurts. So in terms of running the ball at somebody with your running backs, the Browns are doing it significantly more than any other team in the league.
Yeah, the Browns understand where their bread is buttered. They understand the advantage they have with their running backs and the advantage they have with their offensive line and the marriage between the two and the different schemes they can use to accentuate each of their skill sets. The Browns they're coming downhill at you, and that's what it's going to be. That's going to be their go-to. They know what their lead punch is always going to be. It's going to be the running game, and everything kind of works off that. Most of their passes are play action passes. It's based on the run game. So I know people want to see them run the ball more, but it's a gentle balance. Now, I would agree the 35 attempts by Jacoby in the last game is about 5 more than I'm comfortable with. But you got to think of those 35, 6 of them were screen attempts,
right,
which is just another extension of the run game. So they're trying to get the ball in the running back's hands as much as possible.
And to be honest with you, that was the thing that was missing. Jacoby was just off on those screens, and if they can connect on 1 or 2 of those, I think it opens a lot of things up.
Yeah, it could have definitely changed the game. I think what they understood, the Falcons, is they were getting in the rush lanes. They were pushing the tackles back and kind of just obstructing Jacoby's view. And he doesn't really have another arm angle to switch to get around those defenders, which is something he's going to have to adjust to now that he's put that on tape, because the Browns still need to have the screen game as a pretty important element of their passing attack, are those short passes to the running backs behind the line of scrimmage.
And that's the adjustment we need to see. What do you do to get that screen game going? Because to your point, it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough against the Falcons, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, and there were several of them with tons of green grass in front of them. If they could have connected, like you said, 1 or 2 of those could have changed the entire complexion of the game.
All right, so Nick Chubb, everybody knows he's been outstanding. Let's take a look at the production here, and this is from Pro Football Focus. 22 runs, 144 yards week 1, 1787, 3 touchdowns in week 2, 23, 113 and a touchdown in week 3, 19, 118 and 1 touchdown in week 4. He's right around 20 rushes per attempt. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, 81 attempts, 459 yards, and 5 touchdowns through 4 games. They're not going to be able to show you statistic on Chubb that doesn't make you say, wow.
Right.
I mean, and like you said, 20 a game, I think that's a good number. And it's up. His career average was like 16 and a half. So like they understand they have to get him the ball more, but there's a fine balance between doing that and running him into the ground where he's not going to be as effective over the stretch of the season. So I think they're kind of balancing that nicely, and Hunt allows them to do that, to where they don't have to run Chubb into the ground. They have a plan B, that they can go to that's very solid. So they have a good thing going, and it's all about just riding it out, just letting that be their consistent punch right there with Nick Chubb.
A lot has been made of the play calling. Just a gut reaction to the. I didn't have nobody's going to agree with all the play calls. They're just not. I didn't have I thought he had better games, but I didn't think it was horrible by any stretch.
Yeah, inside the red zone, it was kind of puzzling, the play choices. But overall, it's all dependent upon, did it work? If it worked, everyone's going to love it. If it didn't, everyone's going to second guess you. And what they were doing inside the red zone wasn't working. So, of course, you're going to have detractors. But as he pointed out in the press conference, man, it's about the process. The results will be greater over time if you stick to your certain process. And Stefanski's going to be aggressive. He's shown us that. And when it works, no one's throwing tomatoes at him, trying to get him off the stage. But when it doesn't work, man, people come out of left field, And it does kind of dictate, like, playing on the road is different than playing at home. I understand that. But he understood that the Falcons were going to score points.
Right.
And he was just trying to get on the board. 7's greater than 3. And he had faith in his guys. And I think the players appreciate that.
Yeah, and I again, you're playing without 3 of your 4 starting defensive linemen and without your starting middle linebacker. What it tells me is he thought he was going to have to score a lot more points.
Yep, and by his actions, that's what it is. Like, especially when they get in close. Like, you didn't go draft Cade York for chip shots.
Right.
You drafted Cade York because you want to hit those 40 to 35 yarders consistently. But when you're in close, they want 7. They made that an emphasis, and like I said, the players will back them on that.
All right, so this from Dawg Pound Daily. 3 Browns players who have disappointed in the first 4 weeks. They're going to go with David Njoku, number 3, Grant Delpit, number 2, and Denzel Ward, number 1. Njoku, the fumble was disappointing without question. He's been really good run blocking, and by and large, he's played pretty well, minus that, and I know that fumble's huge, but minus that fumble, he's played pretty well.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed in the player at all. I'm kind of disappointed in his usage the first 2 games. That was puzzling, but these last 2 games have been awesome. I mean, if you think about it, he's on pace for 80 catches and 800 yards. If I would have told you that before the season, I'm sure you'd have been happy with those results. But the fumble is disappointing. He's going to have to learn from that because he's the type of player who's going to catch it in traffic and probably wind up in a collision more times than not. So it's got to be high and tight, and I think that's going to kind of accentuate that to him and make that a point of emphasis. But like you said, man, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but he is a plus blocker now.
Yep.
If you think how far that young man has come since he got here from Miami when he was allergic to blocking. And what he does now, taking on defensive ends, like that is so advantageous for an offense that has a tight end that's not a tell. When Njoku's on the field, it's just as likely a run as it is a pass, because he's that type of inline blocker now. So I'm not disappointed in his season at all.
Yeah, if you're going to credit the run game, you got to give a little bit of credit in that run game to the blocking of David Njoku without question. Grant Delpit, I think the whole secondary has been disappointing. I don't want to single anyone out because it's a unit, and that unit has had some issues.
Yeah, I kind of put Grant Delpit and Denzel Ward in the same bucket. I think they had disappointing starts to the season. But both of them are actually trending up if you look at it now. Denzel for 2 weeks, and Delpit actually had a decent game against Atlanta. Now, he's a little uneven. He'll miss a tackle every now and again, but his presence was felt in Atlanta. He had a couple breakups. He had a nice stop tackle at the line. So I think both those players are trending up, but I would agree they had disappointing starts to the year. But there's going to be a lot asked of those guys back there over the next few games, so they need to be trending up in a hurry.
Yep, need to get it fixed in that secondary because this is the portion of the season where quarterbacks, they're going to throw it downfield or come in calling. All right, Case Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We will continue talking Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, how you doing? I've been married for 17 years. My wife is a Philadelphia Eagles fan. In those 17 years, they started a rebuild. They went to the Super Bowl, and now they're good again. In these 17 years, we're the same as we've always been. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, the biggest problem was there was no stability here for a while. So let the guys do their work and keep the front office and the coaching and the head coach together.
I relate to that caller. One of my best friends is an Eagles fan, so I've watched it from, just through his journey and having stability for years with Andy Reid, then a little bit of down. And then they kind of caught lightning in a bottle and just won a Super Bowl, kind of almost out of nowhere. And now they went down a little bit and they're back up. Like, he's right. They've been up more than they've been down, but they've had a couple transitions and managed to keep coming back up. But I wouldn't argue that they're that far off from where we are right now. Our rosters are kind of built similarly. They're built from the offensive line as an emphasis. Now they have better outside weapons as we have a better running game. But it's a good influx of young players meeting with some veterans. Like, it's not that far. It's just the Eagles this season, we're going to go as far as Jalen Hurts could, if he could take a step. And by all appearances, he's taken that step. So now it's looked at as if they're all the way up here. The Browns are not that far from that. It's all about consistency and also playing up or down to the level of your opponent. And unfortunately, the Browns have the talent, but they've been playing down to the level of their opponent. We're going to find out this week if they can play up to the level of their opponent, because they have a team coming into Cleveland that'll hang 40 on you if you don't have your stuff together. So, yeah, it's a journey. It obviously feels like we've been down, but we're really not that far from turning the corner.
All right, let's take a look at this. This is interesting as well. How often teams turn 1st and 10s into additional first downs? Browns are currently 5th in this at 76%. 7% field goals, only 5% turnovers, 12% punts. And you see the top team in that is the Bills, just how good Buffalo's offense has been. And basically that's sustaining drives and keeping drives alive, not getting off the field. So, again, a good thing with what the offense, and especially the running game, has been doing.
You can see just by the time of possessions in the game. Like, if you look at every Browns game, we're winning the time of possessions. And that is a formula for them. That is what they have to do. That has to be true every game they're going to win this year. And that's because they've been able to sustain drives. They've been really successful in between the 20s. So that's got to be something a thread they see throughout the season is, winning the time of possession and just extending drives. For them right now with Jacoby, it is about staying in front of the sticks. You do not want 2nd and 10. You don't want 3rd and 8s. You want to just constantly be grinding, getting your 5 yards a clip and just keeping it moving.
A concerning thing, though, is the Browns are the 8th most penalized team in the NFL. And that kind of dovetails off of what you said. If you're the 8th most penalized team, that's a way to get behind the sticks, and they can't have that.
Yeah, the margin for error is so slim in the NFL, and you can't afford, to shoot yourself in the foot. And why it's most concerning for me is this is the 3rd year of the same voices in the room, and you're still having these silly penalties. Just take the Atlanta game, for instance. The Browns had 7 penalties for 51 yards. Atlanta had 1 penalty. 1. You know what I mean? It's self-inflicted. And sometimes it's not even the effort penalties, which I don't mind as much. It's neutral zone infractions. It's offsides. It's 12 men on the field. The silly things, the mental mistakes that you have to negate, and the Browns still have them. So they got to weed that out.
All right, NFL Week 5 power rankings. This one comes to us from ESPN. Browns currently 18th, and you see they're down from a week ago. Defensive efficiency is the reason, 39.5. Biggest issue on the defense, a banged-up defensive line, and we still don't know if that's going to get corrected. If Clowney and Garrett are unable to go, it's going to be a very difficult chore against this passing attack that's coming in.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge issue. You're missing your two best defenders, you would argue, and you see what Atlanta was able to exploit without them being on the field. They were able to run at will. And I know people think of Garrett as just a pass rusher, but that's not it. Both him and Clowney set edges and make it extremely hard for running games to go outside the numbers, and it makes it harder on the linebackers. You have to cover more of the field. When those two guys are on the field, everything's kind of in front of you. It gives the linebacker a shorter range of outcomes to kind of keep it between the tackles. That being ranked 18, I think that's also fair. That's what we've shown to be. We're up, we're down, we're middle of the pack. They haven't really done anything that would tell you otherwise as of yet. But that's one of their issues. It's not their biggest issue, in my opinion. But if you think about it, like, not many teams are going to be willing to do what the Falcons did. They're not going to just run it 14 straight times. Most teams aren't patient enough for that. But the Falcons, after that Mariota interception, Arthur Smith just said, I'm not losing because of Mariota, just handed the rock off, and you see what they were able to accomplish doing that.
What do you think the biggest issue is?
Personnel. I think I sat here, I've seen other people talk to you say the same thing. They needed a run stuffer. They needed a guy that could hang his hat on eating up gaps and taking on double teams and making the job easier on linebackers. And they just chose not to do it. And I know they're down Taven Bryant, but it's not like Taven Bryant's going to come in here and change the face of the run beat, And I know not all teams will do it. Like I said, it's very specific teams. If you don't think Baltimore will run it down your throat, you haven't been watching. If you don't think Belichick watches game tape and sees that, it's going to be a long day for you. So I think it's personnel and the injury to Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a communicator. He's a guy who got people lined up. He was a guy like in Phillips, for all of his athleticism and his tools, he over pursues a lot, which opens up rush lanes, and you can exploit that, and teams will.
Yeah, I think they're going to miss the way Anthony Walker played the run. The only one that might be able to fill that role is Sione Takitaki, and he's not quite the veteran that Walker is at doing it.
Yeah, I also like Dakota Allen and Jordan Kunasek in situational football. If that's happening again, I would like to see those guys get a shot in there when it comes down to their. Literally, it was 10 straight runs on one drive that culminated in a touchdown, and then 4 on the next drive, and they only stopped because Mariota bobbled a fumble or bobbled the snap. But, who knows how long that would have went on. But they have a couple guys I wouldn't mind seeing getting a shot, not being the full-time green dot, but just situational run-stuffing linebackers when it calls for it.
Casey Kinnamon from Dawg, Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll take a look at where the Browns are relative to the rest of the AFC. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dawg, Pound Daily. Casey, a lot's been made of the Browns start. Let's take a look at the 2022 AFC seeding after 4 weeks, and it's a little surprising. Browns currently 4th in the AFC. Miami, Kansas City, Jacksonville. The Browns, Buffalo, Tennessee, Baltimore would be the 7 playoff teams. So bottom line is 1-0 in the division, still everything ahead of them. Schedule much tougher, but it's there.
Yeah, everything they wanted is still right in front of them. It's all about you kind of navigating these waters. And the team can't afford to do this, but I'm going to. They have to win one of these next two. Have to. Absolutely must. It'd be nice to go ahead and get that out of the way this week. But like everything still, you're going to have to tread because Cincinnati plays Baltimore. And then all of a sudden the winner of that game will also going to have a division win, and that'll kind of buoy them up with us. So it's all about just, I know the team, I know their mantra, it's going to be 1 week at a time, but like they absolutely have to win one of these next two.
Yep, without question. All right, John Breach from CBS Sports predicting the Chargers-Browns game. He sees the Chargers coming away with a 30-20 win. Rationale: with Myles Garrett banged up, Browns pass rush is going to suffer, which means Justin Herbert could end up having a big day. Yeah, that's very true. And he's been thrown to his tight end a lot. Keenan Allen's been beat up. The one thing going on the Browns' favor is earlier in the season, Chargers gave up. They were gashed in the run game. So that's something they got to clean up.
Yeah, I'm not naive. I think that Herbert could have a big day even with Myles on the field. He's that type of guy. It's not just about Myles' presence. It's about his effectiveness. If Myles is at full strength and playing like his hair's on fire, that could be a game changer. But Herbert's that type of quarterback. If you watch him play, at least once a game, he's going to make a throw that you do not believe. Not even just the level of skill, but the level of confidence he has to throw that ball. Something that could be the size of a football, and he throws it right through the keyhole. He's that guy. So they got to get to him and make him uncomfortable. That is a huge thing they have to do this week. Is if Garrett and Clowney can't go, you've seen that they were able to manufacture some pressure against Mariota. That won't work against Herbert. If you go to blitz him like that, you're going to pay, and you're going to pay quick. So it's all about getting to Herbert, making him uncomfortable, and getting him on the ground.
What are other things that you see as the keys? What do the Browns need to do? Obviously, they can't turn the ball over. You can't give that offense the ball 3-4 times.
Well, kind of just what they've been doing. They have to win the time of possession. They got to keep Herbert on the sideline. But offensively, just be who you are. Like you touched on it. The Chargers don't have an exceptional run defense. You go be you. Don't stop you. Make them stop you. You run the ball, lean on 24, play action passes, boots, keep everything short, stay with the sticks. Don't get out of your element, but you have to score touchdowns. That other team, no matter how good you play on defense, is going to score points because of who they have at their quarterback position. Now, they do have key injuries, man. They don't have a left tackle right now. Rashawn Slater's out. Look on the other side of the ball. Bosa's out. He's a huge physical presence for them, So, run at that. Just be who you are on offense, run the ball, but be efficient in the red zone. Those are huge keys this week.
Yeah, the other thing they have is they have a pretty good running back in Austin Eckler. That's a guy that, I'm sure he's looking at what Algier and Huntley did, and he's going, man, give me the ball some.
And unfortunately for us, they realized they had Eckler last week. It's like he's been an afterthought until now. And then you watch him play last week, it's like, yep, they got that going now too. So that's going to be a huge concern. I just don't know if they'll be patient enough to stick with the run the way that Atlanta was forced to. Not that they were literally, nothing was working. Their quarterback had 7 completions for an entire game. So they just leaned on the run, and that was able to work. If Clowney and Garrett are back, I think that negates that a little bit, and it'll even up the playing field.
Do you think, and you kind of touched on it, do you think Joe Woods stays away from blitzing just because Herbert has the big arm? I mean, without question, this is a guy that can get it downfield quickly.
It all depends on the health of Garrett and Clowney. The key is generating an organic pass rush. But as we saw last week, if they don't have Garrett and Clowney, they are not able to do that, and they'll be forced to blitz, which is taking a huge gamble. But I think if you're healthy, you don't blitz as much. You pick and choose your spots, and you have to do it in ways that's going to just confuse Herbert, get him off his mark, get him off his rhythm. Because if it's something he sees coming, you're already got.
Yep, I would agree. The other thing is, the Falcons ran the ball effectively. The Browns still had almost a 10-minute advantage in time of possession, and I mean that's you need that again. You need even more than that to keep that offense off the field.
Yeah, to time possession about 10 minutes. The other quarterback had 7 completions. Like, you tell me that ahead of time, I'm like, I'm celebrating the win. You know, it's just the little thing, man. And we don't talk about it enough. This team is young. No one wants to hear it because we've been tired of losing. But this team is young, and they're still learning how to win. You know, and that's something that can't be overlooked. And putting games away, like, in all honesty, yeah, they were in position to win the game towards the end or tie it with a field goal. It shouldn't have came down to that. That's a team they should have beat by at least 1 score, you know. But this week they're going to have to play up to their competition. So we're going to find out a lot about this team on Sunday.
Casey Kinnamon, Dawg Pound-Daly, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff, Casey.
Hey, anytime.
All right, Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dawg Pound-Daly. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.